Hi, folks, and welcome to the Educator Experience podcast. My name is Salli Carter, and through the conversations that we're having in this space, we're building community, connection, and a true sense of belonging within our profession. So, thank you to everyone for your ongoing support. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Mery Guzman Antelo, an assistant professor in TESOL and bilingual education at Rhode Island College. Mery's work is grounded in more than 2 decades of experience teaching multilingual learners in both K 12 and adult education settings in the US as well as internationally. In our conversation today, Mery shares her journey from teaching in Argentina to becoming a professor in the US and reflects on the role that mentorship, cultural perspectives, and authenticity have played in shaping her path as an educator and researcher. We talk about the challenges of transitioning from classroom teacher to researcher and the whole who am I in that transformational space trying to figure it out? Am I a teacher? Am I a researcher? What's going on here? How our personal experiences shape our teaching practice and the importance of building meaningful connections with students and colleagues, which is also something that we're doing here. Mery highlights the importance of diversity and inclusion in the classroom and shares really thoughtful advice for those mentoring new teachers and supporting multilingual learners. It really is a wonderful conversation about mentorship, identity, and the relationships that shape our work as educators. So without further ado, let's get to it with Dr. Mery Guzman Antelo. Being an educator is one heck of a lonely journey, but every step holds a story, an experience that shapes how we teach, learn, and grow. Welcome to the Educator Experience. I'm your host, Salli Carter, and together we'll explore the moments that define us as educators. Through authentic conversations and shared experiences, we're building a community that connects, reflects, and inspires, all while breaking down barriers in education, one story at a time. You are not alone. Let's grow together. Mery, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to share this space with you. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got into teaching, where you are now.
So my journey started a long time ago, right out of high school. When I started my teacher training college, I started working in Argentina, where I'm from, Buenos Aires. I decided to pursue my studies in teaching English as a foreign language, because in Argentina, English would be a foreign language. Then, you know that I have the feeling that life just happens. You made like plans every 5 years or 3 years. And the truth is that I didn't. I just vibed with the flow of the opportunities were coming my way during my time in Argentina, that I work with primary school students, high school students, teaching business English, teaching English to nurses, like in different spaces. I wanted to see different ways of living, different ways of knowing, different contexts, because I think I was always afraid of getting only one perspective and forgetting, that sometimes you tend to forget, right? I'm forgetting what it's like when we integrate different perspectives. And at that time of my career, those different perspectives was putting myself in different settings.
Love this. Yes. So you're creating this learning opportunity for yourself as you go along as well, because that's what interests you.
And I'm not sure, Sally, to be honest, if I was 100% aware of that. I can tell you this now after maybe 25 or more than 25 years in the field, because now that also changed for me. Now perspectives are not about settings. It's about reading articles and trying to participate in different research projects with different researchers and teachers that bring those different perspectives. I think that now those perspectives in a way are coming to me, but at that time I was seeking those perspectives when I decided to pursue my PhD. I do feel that every time I approach a project, I can see it from multiple places.
You know what it makes me think of is when we're younger, if we're kind of stuck where we are in the same town or the same place, we're putting ourselves in different situations. So we're still connecting with world views, even in our small space.
Yes, and I love what you're saying because we tend to think that if you stay in the same place, you will never see other perspectives. And I think that that is not necessarily true. It's how you interact with your context that will give you those multiple perspectives. Because you can also travel the world and have only one perspective if you don't have that interaction, you know?
Just stay in your hotel room the whole time.
Yes, yes. Or even looking for a restaurant that sells only the food you like.
Right.
You see, like kind of, I don't buy that idea that if we travel and you don't necessarily become more open-minded or receptive of other perspectives. You might be more prone to it because you might be in situations that kind of force you to do it, but not necessarily. So during my time in Argentina, I did multiple things, but I also came to the US in two different opportunities with two Fulbright scholarships. Or two Fulbright programs that also gave me a different understanding of how I was approaching my teaching, right, and my career, because it was for me the first time that I was in contact with international teachers. And that was my time to learn about how teachers are thinking in other places and the practices they were implementing. Basically, we could learn from each other in these spaces that were so rich, you know, so uh, culturally, linguistically, and humanly rich. And then at some point, I wanted to pursue a master's in teaching English as a second language. And I had a wonderful experience doing my master's. I had wonderful colleagues, wonderful professors, and a wonderful advisor, a wonderful mentor. And in Argentina too, right? Like in that sense, I've always felt that I was in the right places. I had to be. I started having kind of a crisis in my master's, but it wasn't that visible. But more and more I got interested in mentoring. I learned about mentor teachers here in the US, those teachers who worked alongside pre-service teachers, the students who were doing their teaching education program to become teachers. And I think that that was one of the things that eventually pushed me into pursuing my PhD because I had been in the classroom for 20 years at that time. I love the classroom with all my heart, with everything it offers, right? The good, the challenging, the sometimes you're tired, but I love the energy of interacting with students, with colleagues. I love the energy of the school. But I felt the need to start getting more in tune with teachers
Hmm.
uh, because I reached a moment where I had all these rich experiences of the classroom. I felt I needed to do something with all that. All this to say is not that I left the classroom because I wanted or I was tired or I said I cannot do this anymore. I think that my interests, they took a different direction.
Hmm.
But not on their own, right? Because I had the agency, I did it, right?
But you're still
And
using your skills and your learning from the classroom, but now to support others, right?
yes,
Yeah.
I was very interested in this figure of the mentor teacher that I had discovered there. And so when I started my PhD, that was basically what I wanted to focus on. It was a topic that really spoke to my heart. Starting the PhD and focusing more on the research, and I was a teacher, right? I had never been involved in big research projects, or I never saw my identity as a researcher. That was a word that for me growing up, like, I don't know, I imagine someone in a lab with a white
Right?
apron,
Yeah.
you know?
The
Yes,
goggles, the whole thing. Yep, the white
yes.
coat. Yeah.
eh, and I don't know, more related to science, math. It took me a while to understand that there are different types of researchers
Mhm.
and not what I had created in my imagination, or I don't know, maybe I took it from the movies I have no idea.
Right.
And so at the beginning, I think it was a little bit hard for me. I was struggling inside with this identity of like, I'm a teacher, I'm not a researcher. So I think I was having a hard time understanding where my place was.
I can totally picture this for sure. Yes.
It was a big identity crisis because I've always known and identified myself as a teacher of language, and I loved it. And I loved the energy of my students and how we interacted, and interacting with parents, with other colleagues, with even the administration, those. And all of a sudden I was in a different place. But I think that what kept me going, because there were many nights that I went to bed thinking, well, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe this is not for me. But then I realized that there was a way in which I found unconsciously, I think at the beginning, of bridging those kind of two identities, because I think that we have multiple, but at that time my struggle was between those two things. It was really getting into my topic, that was mentoring. I wanted to focus on mentoring pre-service teachers because I found that a specific moment in the development of a teacher to be like once in a lifetime, because we have mentors throughout our careers maybe, but that specific moment when you are preparing yourself to become a teacher, right? It's kind of unique. It will never come back to us, right? Like,
Right.
and I still have my memories from that moment. I found a lot of value and heart in that specific moment, especially because I was very fortunate when I was doing my teacher preparation program. I had amazing, well, we would call them back home like supervisors, but I mean, thinking about it, they were kind of mentors. I saw that some other students did not have those experiences. I could tell that there was a difference in how we approached not only that specific period of our development, but also the years we stayed in our teaching profession, and how that moment is so impactful, or at least that is what I saw at that moment, right? Looking around, that in a ways the impact is not during that semester that you're interacting with that human, but the impact goes beyond that.
Right.
This new direction that I was telling you about, that I wanted my career to take, was okay, now I want to bring all, like myself, me, Mary, as a human and as a teacher and as a future researcher, into preparing future teachers. I think that my heart was moving me towards that direction. And with the mentors, I still found my little place of, okay, I don't want to leave the classroom 100%. I'm not prepared for that. But I saw mentors as a kind of that I could do the two things, remain connected to what speaks to my heart, that is teaching and the students, but also to this new direction that I really wanted to take my career towards, that was preparing teachers. When I finished my PhD, I found a job doing exactly that. Nowadays, I prepare teachers who are studying to get their degrees in TESOL, teaching English as a second language, and bilingual education.
So, do you work with a lot of international teachers then wanting to teach English as a second language, or are they American teachers also wanting to teach English?
I think that nowadays I'm doing both. Since I started my master's, I've been interacting and working with both teacher candidates, people who are from the US and international candidates. Yes.
What are you noticing for similarities and differences between those groups as teaching English for second language educators?
What I'm seeing now, I think that with a different lens, especially after having this identity crisis that I didn't know where I wanted to place myself in, right? Is that we do a lot of work in our classes with bringing our experiences and our funds of knowledge, everything we have with us, right? I started teaching when I was very, very young. And I remember that that at that time there was a different understanding. And even when I went to school, that I don't know, interactions with teachers seemed more formal. I don't remember many teachers sharing, for example, a picture of their kids with us, right? Or sharing stories. It wasn't until I was maybe in a senior year of high school that I remember I had a teacher of English as a foreign language that she's been my mentor too, who would share stories about her life. You know, for example, she told us about some challenges along the way. You know, like I think that what I was craving was that humanity
Absolutely. Yeah.
and understanding that, of course, we are not going to enter a classroom and tell our students the story of our lives or sharing the DNA with them. But I always thought, well, it's impossible to live my humanity, humanness, I don't know what word to use, outside the classroom. And I was able to see that very clearly when my mom passed. And the first day that I had to go back into a classroom, and I was like, no, I'm coming here with all my grief, but that doesn't mean that I cannot do my work.
Right.
But now I do it in a different way, and I'm more aware of certain things.
Hmm.
And so I think that going back to your question, what I'm seeing is that the international teacher candidates are bringing all those experiences. Some of them were born here, some of them came here, but they are bringing all their knowledge to the classroom,
Yeah.
to how they plan, to the activities they design, and to the opportunities that they create for their multilingual learners.
Hmm. That makes sense.
And
And it just makes for such a richer classroom, too, right? Students aren't just experiencing or learning English as a second language, but they're learning about different cultures. They're learning about different experiences because the educator is showing up authentically and sharing a piece of themselves. It's really hard not to, isn't it? I think it is. But but I agree with you. We
yes,
grew up very differently. The teachers didn't share a lot about themselves. It was stick to the material and that's it. And there wasn't a lot of personal discussion in the classroom, but it really can make things even richer and more relatable, I think, in the classroom too.
yes, yes. And especially nowadays with all the things that are happening, like in the socio-political sphere, it's not only about the teaching skills, right? There are many other things that we bring. And there are different understandings that, for example, I gained here when I came to the US, because in Argentina, I was Argentinian. It was my country, my culture. But then when I shifted here, I also had to understand in a different way how languages are perceived, to how accents are perceived, to race, to power. And the international teacher candidates navigate extra layers
I
when they go into an educational setting.
That makes so much sense. In my classrooms, I try to, as a business person, I try to incorporate my experiences and share them with my classes because I've had failures, I've had successes. As a woman, I've had certain experiences. So they all enrich the level and depth and breadth of conversation that I can contribute to and facilitate in the classroom. And it's funny because those are the types of conversations that I've had students talk about the most afterwards. If they've contacted me, is that's what they remember is me talking about something that happened or bringing in a particular example. It's not necessarily the material that we're there to cover. Although it's great, it's how we enrich it as educators with our own cultural experiences.
Yes, and it's funny because I was thinking, I got an email similar to what you're describing yesterday. It made me think about my mentors in general, right? The mentors that I had throughout those interactions. I call them real interactions, right? Interactions where you feel free to have that space to be vulnerable or to share something that was not necessarily, that maybe was challenging, right? That I saw myself many times remembering those things when certain situations happen to me in, I don't know, in the workplace, or even with a student in the classroom. That is what makes the work rich. Uh, when we uh, when we are not selfish in what we bring with us, and we
Mhm.
don't leave parts of ourselves, I don't know, aside or under the rug, you know?
We bring our whole selves.
Yes.
That makes
Hmm.
sense for sure. And what a privilege it is to have gone through life and have had great mentors or to be a great mentor in return. I myself have always had really incredible women mentors around me. When I started in corporate world, I had female bosses and they always were helping prepare me, challenge me, and I never had any negativity in that regard, and I've always been really fortunate. I'm not saying I haven't had negative relationships, but in terms of actual mentors, I felt very privileged throughout my life working with women and having there's just something that amazing can happen when there's a trust that you can have and feel vulnerable, share your experiences, and truly know that someone has your best interest in mind. And that's just so beautiful that you're contributing to that for teachers.
Yes. Yes. I had very similar experiences to what you're saying, Sally. And And I even, with time and more reflection, I do lots of reflection in my classes, but also as a human, I do reflective work a lot. I found a lot of value in interactions or relationships that had some ingredient of challenge, because I think that they also offer me at least a new way to see mentoring and to see how we negotiate and up to what extent we negotiate certain things. I did experience challenges along the way, and what I noticed about myself at least was that I was able to stand up to those challenges,
Mm.
and maybe to express my point of view and be able to express it in a way. Well, sometimes I did a better job than others, but it also gave me tools to explain something not only viscerally, but also academically.
Right.
And started, do you remember that I told you about this crisis I had from being a teacher to a researcher? Part of that crisis was also learning the language of,
Right.
and when I say language, I don't mean English, right? But the language of how you can express an idea, back it up with examples, with evidence, right? I saw a lot of value in that. Maybe not at the time it happened, because you know, there are emotions too in the middle, and maybe you feel a little bit overwhelmed. There are lots of demands when you're working, you know. But now with time, and with more kind of clarity of mind, that also helped me even foresee challenges in
I love
a
this.
mentoring relationships.
Yeah, I think a lot of mentoring relationships that happen in post-secondary in Canada, it's informal. And I think I often think about this, about the benefit of formal relationships. How could we continue to develop teachers by giving them these great relationships, someone to rely on, someone to talk to? Informal is great, but what if we took it that step further and had teacher mentors in post-secondary and the value that that would create?
Yes, yes, and
Mm.
something that you said that I think that is key, that you felt, and you said it beautifully. I think you used these words, they had the best interest for
Yeah,
you, or
our
something
best
like that.
interests at
So,
heart. Yeah.
yes, when I go into my personal experiences being mentored, I think that that is key, because I
Mhm.
think that when you truly believe that, even you see challenges in the relationship differently. But that's why it's vital to have fluid and honest communication.
It all comes down to communication, doesn't it? At the end of the day, for sure. Mary, thank you
Yes,
so much
right.
for joining us today. My heart is so full. I love talking about mentoring. It's such an important part of society and teaching. We need more of it. As we start to wind down the conversation, what would one piece of advice that you have Maybe let's switch it up a little bit. One piece of advice for a new teacher mentor.
Try to get to know in your own way, right? Because I don't like recipes or how to do something, because we are all different and we all bring different experiences to a situation. Make that a space to get to know the person that you are mentoring from different angles, because of course we are talking about a professional relationship, right? And we understand that, but even in a professional relationship, we all bring all these different experiences into it. And so make spaces for those experiences to come to the surface.
I love it. And actually create a genuine connection. Yeah, I love
Yes,
it.
I think that there's a lot of value in knowing that those humans are still there, even though they are not physically there. In my experience, every mentor I've ever had, I'm still in touch, and I never felt awkward reaching out to them.
It's so nice. Yeah, we're definitely privileged, aren't we, to have had those experiences for sure. I know it's not everyone's, but that mine have been similar too.
Yes,
Lifelong friendships and relationships. So it's been
yes.
wonderful.
And I like seeing that with teacher candidates. I mean, of course, the mentoring relationship there is different, right?
Mhm.
Because they are for a specific purpose in a very limited time. It is a stressful moment too, right? Because you're being observed. It's your first time in a classroom, and you are more like hungry when you start teaching. You want the recipe. You're like, I want this
Tell me how
until
to
you
do it. How to
understand
be a teacher. Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it all depends in teaching, right? I mean, it depends on your context, so many things. I really love when I get emails from former students saying, I'm still in touch with my mentor teacher, or the other day I implemented something that my mentor teacher showed me at that time. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And also because we are all together in this.
Yeah, we really are, aren't we? And I think by sharing information, sharing experiences, it only enriches us for sure at the end, and that education system too. Absolutely. Yeah. Betty, you had mentioned before in our prior conversation about a potential panel, an idea for a panel. Are you open to chatting more
Ah.
about that? I talked to one of my teammates about it and we love it. What are your thoughts? What ideally would you picture happening?
Well, I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm seeing, Sally, and this is something that you asked me, this difference that I noticed in my classes where I teach bilingual teacher candidates. Yes, I notice a different a different approach from those students to the classroom, to the material, and to how they are going to work with multilingual learners. They bring all these experiences more to the surface. I don't want to generalize, right? But of course, everybody has an accent, right? But like, depending on the context where you are, an accent can be seen from a deficit or from an asset perspective, right?
Right.
And so they bring many experiences of their lives, of their everyday. Some of them moved here when they were very little. Then I remember I shared an experience with them once. I don't know, related to the topic of the class that we were discussing. A couple of weeks later, the student came and she said, I was in this situation in my school, and the first person who came to my mind was you, Mary. And I was able to reply in a way that it wasn't detrimental to me. And for me, when she said that to me, that was like, wow. And then she finished her comment saying, I've never had professors like me in my schooling here. And I was like, wow. And so for me, this idea of mentoring diversity in education, and when I mean diversity, I mean different ways of seeing the world. I don't want to call it superficial, but the superficial thing about quotas, color, it's diversity in experiences, diversity in ways of thinking and seeing life. And so I am not sure that those experiences of these teachers navigating a system that unfortunately, oftentimes puts them aside, but at the same time, the system itself desperately needs them, because at this point in the world, linguistic diversity is a given in a school,
It
you
is.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
linguistic and cultural diversity. And I don't know if the stories of these teachers in general has been really heard, you know?
Their
Eh,
experiences. So you're interested in hearing their experiences and having them share is that fair? Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
As
And how those
bilingual.
experiences, in fact, had an impact in how they are thinking about teaching. They are thinking about access, thinking about also what it's like for us as teachers, educators to prepare these teachers. So in that regard, the experiences, right? How basically, in a way, if I have to put it in more academic terms, is how they are making sense of those experiences, because
Right.
we can have many experiences in life, and some of them we know, we discard sometimes because maybe they are not relevant in a specific moment. But what I'm seeing is that there are many things that become super relevant when they are in the classroom. Well, I teach a methods, a bilingual methods class, right? And when we talk about strategies that we can implement with our students, when we talk about equity in the education system, I see conversations that I have not seen before. They
Interesting.
touch on topics that, I've learned here in the US, sometimes it's like in different educational settings that they talk about difficult topics. And one day I was coming back home and I was like, difficult for whom? Because
Right.
I live that topic every day. So let's put it out there. It's not difficult in the sense that if it is part of my everyday life, we need to talk about it. Maybe it makes other people uncomfortable, but it doesn't make me uncomfortable to talk about deficit perspectives, racial inequalities. So, yeah, I was interested in that, in how they are
Love it.
making sense of the experiences, learning to become teachers, and teaching and interacting with other, not only teachers in schools, right? Sometimes it's administrators, staff, like how their stories of migration impacted their teaching. Because I was telling you, some of my students are US born, but many are not.
Right.
And some of them came late. For example, some of them were teachers in their countries. They were very well prepared, but they moved here and their degrees have no value. And so they had to go back and start all over again. So how they learn, because when I moved here, I had to learn a new land. Like I had to learn a new way of communication, a new way of interacting. And also because I was used to working with multilingual learners. But then you asked me this question in the podcast. All of a sudden, I was in a classroom with all monolingual teacher candidates who were born here. And I was the foreigner in front of a classroom. The teachers that we prepare, many of them are in those situations.
Hmm. And how they're making sense of that and still remaining true to themselves.
Yes, and I think
Right.
that is key what you're saying,
Right.
because there is I mean, what I see and what I experience is that there is that tension.
Right.
You are
Right. Right.
I think that at sometimes, maybe when you're a little bit overwhelmed or tired, it's very easy to believe certain things, right? To believe that deficit perspectives that are coming to you from many different places, sometimes very subtle, but they are there, you know?
This
Um,
is really interesting. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's really
yes.
important to bring people together, celebrate diversity, and the folks who are international teachers teaching in our classroom as well.
Uh-huh.
and their experiences. It's a beautiful story and experience to share with our listeners. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sally, for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Sending you so much love.
Me too.
I'll talk to you soon, Mery. Thank
Bye,
you.
Sally.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Educator Experience. We hope you're walking away feeling connected, inspired, and just a little bit more supported on your journey. Ready to go a little bit deeper? Join the Educator Experiences community and check out our courses and workshops specifically designed to support new educators as they navigate the ups, downs, and everything in between. You'll find it all at educatorexperiences.com. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with a fellow educator, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Together, we're building a vibrant community rooted in support and connection. See y'all next Monday.